Hey, St. Paul and friends. I haven't hopped on this space in this way to engage you all via a video in a long time. Um, Deleted Facebook off my phone and all of that, so I can't do a live video, and I can't figure out how to do it from my laptop. None of that is the point. I felt compelled to jump on here and talk to y'all for just a minute, because the news, not just in the last 24 hours, but especially in the last 24 hours, has been so um, scary and heavy and tragic and daunting. Find whatever adjectives you want to describe what the news has been like. Um, for those who don't know, who aren't engaged, who haven't watched news or scrolled news on your social media feeds, there was a very, very popular um, conservative social media influencer, podcaster, personality, Charlie Kirk, who was shot and assassinated. He was pronounced dead at at the hospital after it happened while he was speaking at a campus event at Utah Valley State, in Utah. And it was one of his things. Toured the country, hosting speaking engagements at college campuses all across the United States, um, promoting a conservative platform. I don't right now in this space, the politics or the partisan politics of all of it aren't what I want to talk about. Um, I want to talk about the role of our Christian faith, um, and the tools of our faith, which include prayer and worship and gathering and the breaking of bread. I want to talk about the role of our Christian faith, because this is a church page, in all of this, in engaging the news, in engaging, or existing within the palpable tension that is so characteristic of our time. Um, because the reality is, I saw a very good friend and colleague who posted on social media yesterday what captures my feelings in the last 24 hours, but not just the last 24 hours, the last however many years, which is just that, um, in a way, the world seems like it gets just a little bit, and some days a lot, a bit scarier every single day. Um, Gun violence in our communities is rampant. Um, a pretty sizable chunk of it is in some way related, to the politics of our day, which, to call our politics divisive, would be just the understatement of a lifetime. And so this whole thing just feels like a powder keg all the time, that reloads again and again and again. And this probably isn't the best language, and I apologize for that. I'm off script here. I'm really just thinking through this, but that just erupts, at intervals every so often, and more often, um, more and more often is what I'm trying to say. And so the world can seem like it's a little bit scarier every day. The news is hard to consume. It disrupts our lives. It makes us anxious, with a lot of really good reason. It's because we care. Um, it can be because we're afraid of what might happen in our communities. I'm a father of two young kiddos, and I worry. I lay awake at night and I worry about what the world is going to be like. I worry about what it's like right now, but I definitely worry about what it's going to be like as they get older, as they come into adulthood, as they approach the age I am now, and they're responsible, for what the world is like when they have to take the reins. And so I worry too, and the world can seem pretty scary to me too. And that's all reality. Um, but as Christian people, I like to believe, I do believe, um, that we have an eternal source of hope, and peace, and when we put it all together, there's joy there. So one of the first things, as a pastor, I may not be your pastor, but if you're watching this, there's a good chance that I am. I want to make a recommendation. It's something I'm doing. As soon as I post this video, I'm man, I'm disengaging from the social media scene for a little while. I think it's really good to be engaged. I think it's good to know what's going on. Um, I don't think it's so great or healthy spiritually, mentally, emotionally. I think there's a physical component. I don't think it's so great to be connected and engaged in that space all the time, where you're just constantly inundated with all the horrible things that are happening, all of the supposed implications, and particularly whose fault all of it happens to be. And we paint that situation with really broad brush strokes. And when we spend too much time in that space, we end up thinking things about our neighbors, some of whom we gather for worship with each and every week, we go to the farmers market with, we sit in restaurants across from them. It's not the reality of who our neighbors are, and we end up thinking that. And the other thing that I think we end up feeling is this immense pressure to have something to say on social media. If you're a person that just kind of lives in that space, um, you have this feeling that if you don't speak up, if you don't make a post to talk about what happened yesterday, um, or gosh, pick pick a tragedy, pick an incident, pick a controversy. We feel this pressure that if we don't have something to say, and we don't have a take, that we're being irresponsible and that we're not living up to our values. And I just, maybe that's true, but I don't think that it is. And I think it really defeats us. I think it really, not that we shouldn't care, not that we shouldn't be engaged, not that we shouldn't live out our core values and our commitments in community, in a whole host of different ways, and we all have our own. But I don't, I don't think you have to um, assert a position on social media. And I'm going to pray for you and for me that we don't wind ourselves super tight trying to think of what the right things to say on social media are. You aren't what you post. You aren't you aren't this space. And so I want to make a recommendation as your pastor to disengage. It's your choice, obviously. But to spend some time outside, it's going to be warm. We've got some beautiful days ahead. Um, I'm going to spend some time in prayer. I'm gonna get into some Psalms, and I'm gonna spend some time in prayer and meditation. Um, and then later today, I'm just gonna hang out with my kids. I'm gonna cook a dinner and eat some good food. But just to disengage, sort of the fire hose that is, um, we just can't keep up with this. A tragedy has occurred. Um, Again, I don't want to go into the specific partisan politics of. I've got some complex thoughts, on who Charlie Kirk was as a person, and yet, and I'd be happy. I'm happy to sit down and grab coffee and engage in a conversation about politics, provided that a person is open to some complexity and nuance, and that you know who I am and where I'm coming from. That's all fine. That's not what I'm doing in this space. Um, I'm going to pray for Charlie Kirk's family. He had a wife and two little girls. I'm a father, like I said, with two little ones and a wife, and it's a tragedy. And political violence, violence of any kind, should always be condemned, and I condemn it. And I pray for all of those who are grieving today. Um, and so I'm going to do that. But I'm going to disengage this space. Like I said, I'm going to post this video and I'm going to step away from social media. And pastorally, I just kind of want to prayerfully encourage you to think about doing the same thing. If you're on here too much and you feel your temperature start to rise, you feel sort of your central nervous system start to feel antsy, to shake a little bit, and you find yourself anxious, and you find that rising the more time you spend on here, the more time you spend trying to think of the right thing to say, the right thing to post, the right way to react. Um, that's your body and it's your spirit trying to tell you that you got to take some Sabbath from this space and step away. So I want to encourage you to do that pastorally. I mean, then the other thing, and this really, I promise, it is not a commercial for our church or any church. But if you're a person of faith, if you're a person of Christian faith, um, I encourage you to be amongst a really good, solid faith community on Sunday morning. I encourage you to be in worship with folks who love you, who you know will care for you, who don't, or at least at our best, we don't define your worth by your politics or how you've responded to any tragedies on social media, but that you can be yourself and be loved, and where we can pray together and sing together, hear a good word together, um, and still find joy, because I think that's the truth of what God wants for us. I really believe that, and so um, as the world seems scarier and scarier every day, again, to quote my good friend and colleague, I think those of us who believe in love, those of us who cling to hope, we have to find ways to just be braver and braver every day. And so I plan to try to do that by stepping away from the things that make me feel more scared, to check in on reality in the real world with my neighbors and my friends and my family, to spend some time in prayer, to read some scripture, which tells me again and again, to be less afraid because God is near. And so I believe that for us, and just want to invite and encourage you to think about doing some of those same things. So we'll be here at 10 a.m. on Sunday, to welcome you, to love you, to pray with you, to sing with you. And so you're welcome to join us for that. But maybe take a walk outside today. Maybe shut the screens off for a little while. Um, and be well, friends. I'll be praying for you, praying for our country, praying for our world. Bye.